we're at another video, y'all. Oh, actually, let me move my mic. I might need that. All right, we're doing another live stream. Let me jump right into it. And a question I want to ask you off the jump is, are you focused in the present? And what I want to do is, there's a small, tiny story that I shared in my marriage book, and it's in the letter Q of my marriage book, and it's a very small story, but I want to start off today with that story, and then we'll get into this passage, and then we'll have a little conversation. So the big question is, are you focused on the present? Sometimes people ask that question, and they're considering, maybe making it a spiritual or eternal thing. Other times, I've been asked to do a speech. I remember in 2018, for a group of professional women, they asked me to do a speech on mindfulness. And part of mindfulness is being present. So as we're jumping in today, let me read a section from my marriage book. And here's what I wrote. Recently, I was reading about an ancient custom among the Hebrew men when going to war. There were 4 questions that could make a man exempt from going to war. Number 1, if he had recently built a new house but hadn't lived in it yet. Number 2, if he had recently planted a vineyard but hadn't enjoyed it yet. Number 3, if he had recently pledged himself to a woman but hadn't married her yet. And number 4, if he had been afraid. While the first 3 concern 3 major life changes, and I could see their validity, the 4th reason caught my attention because it seemed like an odd reason. However, the explanation resonated deep within me. The men who were afraid were quarantined so that their fear would not spread to the courageous soldiers. Now, I read that from my book, but really this story or this concept I got from Deuteronomy chapter 20, which I'm going to read from now. I'll get that pulled up here. And we'll get a chance to read that together and then hopefully take a few lessons from this. So Deuteronomy chapter 20, I'll go and read starting in verse 1. It says, when you go to war against your enemies and see horses and chariots and an army greater than yours, do not be afraid of them, because the Lord your God who brought you up out of Egypt will be with you. When you're about to go into battle, the priest shall come forward and address the army. He shall say, hear Israel, today you are going into battle against your enemies. Do not be faint-hearted or afraid. Do not panic or be terrified by them, right? Then it says, verse 4, for the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to give you victory. Now here's where that story really picks up that I'm addressing. It says, the officer shall say to the army, has anyone built a new house and not yet begun to live in it? Let him go home. Or he may die in battle and someone else may begin to live in it. Has anyone planted a vineyard and not begun to enjoy it? Let him go home, or he may die in battle and someone else enjoy it. Has anyone become pledged to a woman and not married her? Let him go home, or he may die in battle and someone else may marry her. Then the officers shall add, is anyone afraid or faint-hearted? Let him go home, so that his fellow soldiers will not become disheartened too. Now, anyway, so this passage, I probably thought about this passage for a few years, and it's one of them that doesn't fully explain all of the insight or the wisdom inside of it, yet it leaves me to wonder kind of that perspective on what was it about the those 4 areas of life, and so why don't we speculate? Again, this isn't a speculation. This is not actual logical deduction and conclusion from scripture, but this is more of a thought process of let's speculate potentially what was being addressed here. And when I looked through the 3 major life changes that were addressed here in this little story, or in this direction, it was if you had built a new house, if you had planted a vineyard, if you had become pledged to a woman, and then if you were afraid. And back to when I wrote it in the book, it's still the first 3 go together really well. The 4th one seems out of place. But if you can imagine this major life change that you've had, and then this direction is that if you had this bigger life change more recently, don't even go to war with us. You go back. You get off the front line, you go back and you go enjoy the house, or you go enjoy the vineyard, or you go enjoy being married. And then we have, the last one, if you're afraid. And it's fascinating to me to see these four. So to speculate on why this was as it was is this idea of when your mind or your heart or your thoughts, your perspective is somewhere else and it's not in the presence, how that could hold you back from the mission or the purpose that you're in right now. So again, this is the reason mindfulness is a relevant topic. We say we practice and we believe in mindfulness generally in the self-help world about getting focused in the present, not consumed with what I have to do, my list later on. You think about this also a topic even like within the yoga sphere. So anyway, I'm sharing this because I wanted to ask you if you're focused on the present. It is one of those virtues that I don't talk about a whole lot when it comes to mindfulness. When you're putting the details away and you're just being focused in your present. It's one of those best practices when I talking to people about speaking, or even if it's preaching, if it's speaking in the church setting. It looks like my camera's a little bit fuzzy there. Let me see if I could get that. I might have time. I'll be able to use that camera during this feed. Let me try it one more time. There we go. All right. So where were we at? So anyway, so for people who are preparing speeches, if you're preparing a speech, and you're trying to figure out what stories, what illustrations. Sometimes the stories and illustrations pop up all around us, whether it's the babies or the children or the grass or the trees or the vines or our pillow. You know, so you have illustrations that happen all around you if you're mindful, right? If you're in your presence, as opposed to being somewhere else. So anyway, I shared this story from Deuteronomy 20. I shared a story from a book because I think it reminds me to be present. But it's also a lesson for the people who are in your circle. And that's where that fourth point gets to, because in the chapter that I was reading from the marriage book, the overarching chapter theme was quarantine yourself from toxic influences, inspired by 1 Corinthians 15 that teaches bad company corrupts good character. And it's one of those self-help principles that you seemingly find in every success book. You see it in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, when it's your inner circle will determine your success. You see it in the Tony Robbins books as well, when he talks about, the 5 closest people determine who you are and who you will be. So I say all of this because in this one section, this one story, if anybody in the army was afraid, they were told they could not be people who fought. And the reason was actually given, it says, so that his fellow soldiers will not become disheartened too, because that fundamental concept was that fear would permeate, it would spread, it would not stay self-contained to only the one person, but it would spread among the camp, it would spread to the other soldiers. And it's one of those reasons why when I think about who's in your circle is so significant. So you have to be actually extra particular about the people you surround yourself with, because it's highly likely that their attitudes, their perspectives, their opinions, their emotions will begin to rub off on you, and then you'll begin to be more like them. And sometimes you already know they don't have the kind of character that you want in your world and in your life. You don't want to be afraid of what they're afraid about, to be worried what they're worried about, to be consumed what they're consumed about. So that's why it's important to be vigilant, and to be extra purposeful when it comes to choosing the people that we have in our circles. So again, we're not going to stay super long on this video. Typically, I will bring this in, and I know we could go a little bit longer. Actually, I have, my friend Amy Lindsay sharing about. I think I have the ability to even pull that on the screen. Let's see if I can do that. It's been a minute since I've tried to do it. There we go. Amy Pleasant Lindsay with so important to live in the moment, not common practice though. Real. And let me see how I removed that. It's been a minute since I've messed with this tool. There we go. Great insight. So yes, anyway, so it's a staying in the moment, staying focused, but then being purposeful with the people you choose in your circle. So here's the question I have for you as as we kick it here on the live, or even as you interact in the comments afterward, is what are some qualities you look for people who are going to be in your circle, who will influence you in the direction you want to go? When you think about people who have had this special impact in your world, what are some qualities about them? What did they do? How did they do it? How did they have this positively powerful influence in your world? Anyway, let me know what you think. And I got a little date night with the wife, so I'm not going to stay on too long on the live today. But you all have a great one, and we'll talk soon.